Hi, John Boy. Yes, I'm waiting for you to come on board. Just what I'll do is I'm just setting up a couple things, or trying to set up a couple things. And as soon as I do, then I'll. Oh, hey, Kat. Um, Vicar. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's nobody. What I'll do is, as soon as I get things set up, I'm going to. I'll just let that know how long I've been live, and then anyone who watches this later can just skip ahead. That's my plan right now. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just going to an older video, if I can. Not working. I'm going to try to cut and paste a few things. My contact information, this type of thing that I've been meaning to put on the live streams. And then so thanks for bearing with me. I hope it's somewhat amusing just watching me prepare this. As I've mentioned before, I'm not. Hi, Teresa. Um, it's just me. It's a one-man show trying to do this. So far, I'm about to save. I've got on the description to contact me. I'm listing my Proton Mail, email address. I do refer to the website of the retreat center, but as I mentioned in another video, the contact page is really not working. Used to get lots of spam. I did a test on it. It's not even coming. So I don't know if someone hacked into it. It's going to someone else. So they've been trying to contact me through the contact page. Not really working. And then I explained that I am a diocesan Catholic priest. I belong to the Archdiocese of Ottawa-Cornwall. So just a little bit of background that is not usually in the live streams. That's what I'm putting in. Just about finished that section. And we'll be back and we'll get right into the topic, which is, it is right and proper that the children are oblivious. Okay, let's see if I can save this. Hopefully it all works. Get back to this video. It is right and proper the children are oblivious. Okay. Hi everyone, Father Anthony Hannon here from In Viam Pacis. This is the YouTube channel To Prepare His Way. And it's another late night with Father Hannon. It's 10 to 11 here in Ontario land. And it's been over a week since I've did a live stream or any video. I haven't done like a pure video in a while, where I can edit and all of that type of thing. Again, like I explained, it's just a little bit easier to hi Jerry, it's just a little bit easier to do live streams because I don't have to wait to upload it to YouTube and everything like that. There is a risk, of course, that you know, I say something stupid. Sometimes as I go back and look at the live streams, I realize that sometimes I'm really slow at thinking. I'm doing a lot of ums and ahs and stuff like that, but you know, I I'm not really trying to be you know, really popular. I just kind of have this attitude of those who want to hear what I have to say will tune in, and that maybe I'm not being very charitable like this, but I'm saying, well, if you want to hear what I say, maybe you'll put up with some of my idiosyncrasies on live and everything like that. So anyway, I've been thinking quite a bit. I actually have a list of topics here, some little notes that I've made. But the main thing is I just been thinking about how people are oblivious to what's going on in the world. Not you who are watching these videos, as I think if you're following, if you have the notifications, you've already watched what I was doing last week, connecting with James Top and his team as he walked from Vancouver all the way to Ottawa. I think it's a historic event. I think he's really trying to be take a very positive approach to things and trying to heal our nation. And anyway, the reality is that there's a lot of people who are oblivious. And how am I dealing with that? And if I can share with you how I'm dealing with it, maybe it might be helpful to you, or maybe you can just tell me I'm full of it. But it's kind of the way I'm trying to sort things out, because you know, we have a commandment from our Lord to love Him and to love everyone else. And I don't want to go around with resentments or frustrations or anything like that. That's why I say, you know, live one day at a time, live the serenity prayer, because there are things beyond your control, beyond my control. And to remember that God loves you, that He is with you. Anyway, I was, you know, watching some people that I really love, you know, in the sense of it's, in some ways I find it easy to love them. They're very lovable, let me put it like that. But they're asleep. They do not realize what is going on. And you know, the last couple months, things are becoming more and more normal. So I think for a lot of individuals here in Canada, not everyone, but more and more, there's a sense of, okay, well, things are back to normal. We got through this kind of plague, and I think the way that a lot of people might be thinking are, wow, we imagine that we can tell our children, our grandchildren, that we lived through the worst plague of all of human history, which is a lie, as you know, was not that. No pandemic caused the destruction of the world's economies and people's businesses, and increased domestic abuse of all kinds, addictions, suicides, all of these things that we've seen, the divisions amongst families and people losing their jobs and all of this. No disease did that. It was the decisions of leaders that did that. And the cooperation, capitulation, compliance of the vast amount of individuals around the world. That's what did it. That's what's doing it. And they have their agenda, and they are pushing forward with it. So those of you who watch my videos, I think most of you know that there's a high likelihood that just around the corner, more mandates are going to be introduced. They're going to try, they're going to keep pushing their agenda, which I believe is a massive reduction in the world's population and controlling everyone else that's left. But it doesn't have to happen that way. If there's enough critical mass, it can be stopped, I think. And with the help of God, with God, all things are possible. So yeah, so I think a lot of people are thinking, wow, we got through that. And I think they're also thinking, some of them are, or will, I think part of the narrative will be, boy, those few years, weren't they awful? Or they're thinking now, weren't those last couple of years awful? And we could have been through it like a year ago, except there are some selfish people in our society who refuse to wear masks, who refuse to cooperate, who are anti-vaxxers. And if it weren't for those selfish people, we could have been out this a year ago. But, thankfully, most people listened. And thankfully, we've got some really good world leaders, country leaders, province leaders, really good public health officials who, it wasn't easy for them, but they told us what we had to do. And it demanded great sacrifices. And thankfully, most people did it. And that's why we're out of it. But you and I know, no, that's they're going to come right back into it this fall in all likelihood, or they're going to have some other things. If it's not some war or some crisis that the powers that be are going to create, whether that be a what's the acronym? CBDC, right? Central bank digital currency. Maybe it will be an EMP. Maybe it'll be who knows what? Maybe they'll introduce some other bioweapon. But I think they're going to go ahead. They're trying to go ahead with their agenda. You and I can see how they're already trying to prep the population for a food shortages. They're already creating that crisis and trying to prepare people to change their eating habits into things that only a truly desperate person would do. And so, but it wouldn't surprise you or me if mask mandates, lockdowns, etc., they try to mandate that very soon, any day, any month, right? We see it in different parts of the world. We also see, various reactions to people in various countries. For example, the Netherlands, Sri Lanka, and there's probably a lot more that I'm not aware of. More and more people are waking up, but I think still the vast majority do not see what most of you can see and what I can see. They're oblivious. So anyway, as I was trying to work this out, so I can have compassion, so I can love people, so I not get resentful, so I not get frustrated, I started reflecting on my own childhood and just, children's lives, families, right? And, mom and dad, the adults, they can see problems in the world. They may have financial problems. They may have problems at work. They may have problems, in the extended family. They can see maybe the global situation, the political situation. But their children are playing. They're playing in the backyard. They're playing their games. They have a joy of life of of discovering new things. They're interested in things that are maybe fun, and and you know what? In our modern day, we look at childhood and we say that that's what childhood should be. They should have a childhood, and of course, you know that historically and in many cultures, it's not the same as here in North America over the last several decades. Um, Children grow up very quickly. Children are working, um, or disregarded. But we tend to see that children ought to be valued. Of course, we've got all sorts of big problems right now in terms of ideologies being forced upon children. But this is part of the reaction. At the truckers' convoy, I remember a proposal came through at one of the camps that they were doing some sort of negotiations or something like this. Whether there really was or not remains to be seen. But the truckers react when I was in their presence. It's one of the live streams going back. I can't tell you what the title was, but they were saying, "What about the children? We don't want the children to wear masks in schools. No negotiation until that is on the table." And so we value children, and we ought to, and we don't want to burden children with financial worries or problems of the world when they're young, right? I don't know at what age, maybe children start listening to the parents. I remember when I was growing up, I was always kind of confused. Are we poor, or are we doing okay? Because I would overhear my parents talking and all of this type of thing. Eventually, we did lose our house in the early 80s with those high interest rates. The house that I that I lived in most of my life. But so in my early 20s, I started, waking up a little bit more to the realities of life. And then when I moved out on my own and had to pay my own bills, you kind of grow up like that. Incidentally, and I'm not trying to be unfair. I'm trying to be accurate. I think that many priests, most priests, bishops, people in religious life are oblivious to many of the stresses that many of you who watch these videos have in terms of rising prices of things, the price of fuel, utilities, food, gasoline. I mean, we see it like a diocesan priest or bishop would see it, that we have to pay our own expenses for things like that. But in terms of interest rates for mortgages, or the price of housing, it's not on our radar for the most part. It's on my radar because I'm kind of living that right now. But and I knew that before I went to the seminary, because I didn't go to the seminary until I was 37. But if someone went from high school to university or into religious community or into the seminary fairly early on, they have their own life experience, which is all very, very good. But for some things, there's blind spots, and we all have blind spots. I have blind spots. But I don't know what they are. It's like denial. When we talk about denial, like in addictions or codependency or something like that, we're usually talking about other people's denial, or when we were in denial. But in terms of my present blind spots, no, I'm blind to them. So I was looking at some friends' videos and seeing them, and they're having a lot of fun, and I'm kind of feeling maybe a little jealous. Not that I don't have fun, but it's like they seem so oblivious to what's going on in the world. But like I counsel others, it's better to be awake and to see and to live in reality than to live in fantasy. And so I kind of looked at them and started saying, well, you know what? It's they're like children. Even though some of them are older than me, they're like children. And I remember one priest, he was in the seminary with me. He was a year or two ahead of me. And I can't remember if he like if he came back to the seminary, if he was talking to me individually or to some others. But he said this, and I hope this is, I'll try to explain this as best I can so it doesn't sound condescending. But he said that, shortly after he became a priest, he realized that most people that he encounters, most people who go to mass on Sunday, for example, when it comes to the level of maturity in terms of their faith, he said, most of them are about 5 years old. And again, he's not trying to put them down, but it was kind of for him. I think it was a shift in terms of him getting frustrated with people because they don't seem to get certain things. And like most, new priests, we go out and we try to teach what we think has not been taught. And a lot of times it has not been taught for decades. But then, we get frustrated because it's not received. And it's just not like people are mature in all sorts of ways. But in terms of faith, there's a great number who are there. And, you'd be surprised, but just because someone is wearing a collar or a habit or, even goes to daily mass for years, it doesn't necessarily translate into a mature spiritual life. And like you may have heard me say lately, everyone is where they're at. Everyone is where they're at. And that's the reality. That's the way it is. So, like, for example, if someone has a drinking problem, but has been in denial, but various events or whatever, at some point, by the grace of God, right? It was a divine intervention. They're like, no, I'm gonna finally get help for this. Maybe they've been trying to control their drinking, maybe all sorts of things they're trying to do, but then now it's like they're going to treatment or they're going to AA or whatever. Well, does that mean that all of their friends and family and drinking buddies are going to come to the same realization at the same time? Well, I think rarely. That maybe the odd person might say, "Oh, they can do it, I can do it," but in general, that doesn't happen. Or recovery from codependency, even more so, because the the dynamics of relationships that we have with individuals, right? If it's if the dance or the interaction is a codependent one, well, then when someone says, "Okay, I'm going to stop enabling," or I'm gonna start making decisions um, based on what I think is right, what I think is good, rather than deferring always to somebody else. So that's kind of a codependency thing. Or even if the codependent is one where the codependency is manifesting itself in control and enabling, right? They're gonna organize everything. They're gonna tell everyone else what to do. So it's a very controlling type of codependency. And then they decide, you know what, this has not been helping anybody or myself. I'm worn out or whatever. And then they decide to stop that. Well, it's rare that 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 the individuals that have relationships with say, "Oh, okay, that makes sense. That's great." No, they get mad at them. They get mad at the codependent. You used to care about us. Now you don't care about us. You used to be so agreeable. Now you're just a pain in the neck. There's a lot of because that dynamic is gone. Um, so if we just look at our own lives, so most people that are watching this video, right? I think that a good number of you are devout Catholics, and not everyone is, and that's okay. That's because that's where everyone is at. And someone may be watching this and say, "Oh, you're a Catholic, but you're a Catholic," and well, you can say that's where you're at. That's where I'm at. And then most people are awake about what's going on in the world, because I found the last couple of years that people have a very low tolerance for someone like me who refuses to wear what I call the outward sign of submission. And as you know, if you've been watching my videos, that I think wearing the outward sign of submission, because that's what I think it is a form of idolatry. I think it's sacrilegious in worship. No, not all of you will see that, and I'm blessed. I'm a priest. I offer the mass on my. I don't have to go to another priest's mass, right? And so I don't have to deal with that stuff. But I find it highly offensive, and so whatever. And some of you are watching this. You have to live. You have to. I've never worn the outward sign of submission for shopping or anything. But maybe I'm in kind of in a unique situation, and I have my personality, I have what I see, da 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 da. And maybe some of you have worn it, or you will still do it, or something like that. And I'm like I'm not judging you, but I'm saying this is the way I see it. I see it as a moral issue on the spiritual level, on the level of false gods, or going along with lies. And so much effort has gone into trying to wake people up, right? Trying to explain to them, reason with them, bring all sorts of data to the table, and so many people just, they don't want to look at it. Don't want to look at it. So now I'm saying it is right, it's proper that the children are oblivious. For you and I, who can see what's going on, and and we deal with the stress of that, right? And we refuse to cooperate with the lies. See, for me to go along with the narrative from the beginning would have been death to me. It would have been a road to depression, a road to feeling trapped, because that's what I lived before recovery. And recovery from codependency is learning how to swim against the stream, and to be different, but also to live but with a clear conscience despite what everyone else is doing. Recovery from codependency is very much doing what you think is right, regardless of what other people think. That's kind of recovery from codependency. With a dash of humility to realize that we're not always right. But if you really think something is right, and then do that. No matter what anyone else thinks, no matter what the consequence is. I saw an interview of Theo Fleury. So many of you know him. Many of you know him, of course, as the former NHL star. But after his NHL career, he came out and exposed that he, in the hockey community, was sexually abused. And now he's helping people. He's helping people so much. He's awake about what's going on. And he saw the government interactions, the government measures. He saw a parallel there with the predators, the abusers, those that abused him. So he's like, he's not going to go back there. He could see that. He's like, no bloody way. So I see like a parallel. Yeah, Theo is doing a lot of great things today. And I don't know his religious affiliation, but he there's so many people I meet who have been abused in one way or another. And I look at spiritual abuse, so not just physical or sexual abuse, but spiritual abuse, which understood properly is even worse than those other things. And those things are really bad, right? Especially sexual abuse is really, really bad. But spiritual abuse is affecting one's relationship with God. And, it's a good thing that Jesus is the judge and he knows the mitigating circumstances and everything like that, right? And, so I think I'm very compassionate for those who are not practicing their faith, but I want them to practice their faith. But nowadays it's like where do you send them? Where do you send them? Anyway, I'm just trying to accept that where people are at. And just like children, they do mature eventually. They gather more. Eventually, they do mature, and they see what the world is really like, and in some areas. And so I think more and more people are waking up. More information is getting out there. Certain side effects of certain things are being harder and harder for people to ignore that there are side effects. And it's a very sad thing, a very tragic thing. But anyway, you and I were privileged. And this is not a Gnostic thing. It's because I'm not talking about salvation, If someone has bought the narrative, if they wear the outward sign of submission, please understand, this is not, unless they know and they're going against their conscience, I don't think this is a matter of salvation, okay? So Gnosticism is kind of like special knowledge for salvation or something like that. And I'm not talking about that. But I think by the grace of God, you and I have been chosen to be the adults in this world right now. Or to be the martyrs, to be the witnesses. And, like one priest friend of mine says, yeah, let's go to Ottawa. Maybe we'll be martyrs. This is exciting times. So yeah, I'm just kind of accepting. It's okay. And we don't, if we see a child playing, we see children playing, we're not like, oh, those kids, they don't know, they have no idea how crazy the world is, right? I mean, we might think that. No, but we're happy. They should be playing sports, running around, playing games. That's what they should be doing. They should be having fun. So if there are adults who, think that we just got through this crisis and now things are rosy or going to be great, they're so clueless even about economy. And if I can see them as like little children, not to be condescending, but for whatever reason, they cannot see what you and I can see. So it is up to us. It is up to us to address these things, to resist the agenda. And that's the type of fight, I'm trying to talk about freedom lovers instead of freedom fighters. You and I know it is a spiritual fight. It is a moral fight. We have to draw on our inner strength, given by God, obviously, right? But it's all by the grace of God. But to dig down deep and say, no, I'm going to resist, and I'm willing to pay the price. And that's our role. And maybe it's also our role to kind of let the others be who they are until they wake up. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. I have been looking at the comments. Kat says, in the end, I feel like we're all walking in our particular deserts, aka alone, because where we are all at is different places mentally. By the way, Kat, I've mentioned you to some people because of of the of the place that you live, because I'm meeting some really really great people, and I'm also remiss because there's another follower and supporter of In Viam Pacis who used to live in California, and I think I've asked permission to give his number to you, and I haven't given that. But this other person I've just met recently, um, she's about an hour and a half away from you, so I want to try to connect you guys. And also, like, by the way, Marcel in Croatia, and if Steve from Croatia uh, watches this video, because I know Steve, you left a comment in a video some time ago, and but if you could send me an email with your contact information. There's another Canadian in Croatia who I mentioned that I have a friend over there now, and and you know, why not make that connection? And I understand too, like some people reach out to me, and I automatically think that my role ought to be connecting people, because I get to know so many people because people reach out to me because of the YouTube videos and because I'm a priest. So, you know, I've never, I don't, I don't think I've ever felt less alone in these last couple of years because so many people reach out to me. But I know that's not the case with a lot of you, and so I think so. But so recently, someone came to visit me, and it was a great visit. And I'm like, you would get along so well with this other guy who's reaching out to me. But when I reached out to the other guy, he said actually he just wanted to contact me. He wasn't really looking to meet other people. So and he doesn't have the time or whatever. And I get that. That's no problem. And that's my bad. My assumption that people want to kind of build their network of awake people. Um, but anyway, okay. So Jerry Dalton says Ottawa and the truckers create such a wonderful spiritual experience. I think Mother Mary was helping them as well, and our as well as our Lord, of course. Agree 100%, Jerry. Agree 100%. So many people I've met, and they're not religious, but they're like they felt called to go down to the truckers. And so many people, when they went down to the truckers, they realized their eyes were open to so much, the lies of the mainstream media, the joy of meeting normal people and good people, and good, healthy, patriotic Canadian pride was like good, that. Yes, there's a lot of good people, and many people are going down to Ottawa every Saturday, or for the other rallies. A lot of them are kind of new to the freedom movement, and they woke up because of the truckers. So Hans and Glack. Oh, this should be good. Okay, but what happens when the children aren't just playing joyfully and obliviously amongst themselves in the backyard, but are the armed thugs of the state killing you and your loved ones? Yeah, I know. I mean, Hans. I mean, ultimately, it sounds like a platitude or something, but this is where the rubber hits the road. We really do have to trust in God and look to the martyrs and look to the we we have to follow our own conscience, live with a clear conscience. In the 12 step groups, they say live and let live, and a lot of people criticize that slogan because they think it's like an indifference, or uh like oh, you're not caring about other people, or you're just being selfish or something like that. It's not like that. It tied with let go and let God. it's it's a it's a realization that I do not have control over people. I do not have control over other people, but I do have control, again, by the grace of God. I don't know why I keep having to kind of like, it goes without saying, okay? But I'm not a Pelagian, okay? That we have to live according to what we believe is true. people say, oh, Father, someone asked me, Father, do do uh, do you think as Christians, as Catholics, do you think we should be prepping? Absolutely, you should be. Given the times, you should absolutely be preparing. Be preparing. Um, but doesn't this go against our faith because Jesus says, "Don't worry about what you're going to eat or wear and stuff like that"? Well, he also says you can see the signs of the time. He also has the parable of the wise virgins and prudent virgins versus the foolish ones. I would say this: inflation. I mean, what miracle is going to happen? Not for us who are in the English-speaking world, developed world, are not going to see massive inflation. We know there's going to be a lot of deaths coming up. There already are, sadly. I mean, tragically. The price of diesel, shipping, shortages, inflation, and their agenda. I think this has a potential of being a really tough winter. But I think we ought to, like, if everyone is growing gardens or stocking up on survival needs, not just for themselves, but to help their neighbors. What should we do to tie in with the topic of this video? Parents, the children don't have to worry about, are we going to have food next week or tomorrow, or shelter? So as Christians, let's be generous, let's be neighborly, and let's prep for our neighbors, right? One of my neighbors, I got a rototiller this year, so I went over to them. They haven't had a garden ever since I've been here, and they've got lots of land. I'm like, have you ever had a garden? Did you want a garden? So I went over and I rototilled a nice area. But their soil is different than mine. I'm up high. I've got a lot of sandy soil. I also have a drilled well with electricity. My neighbors don't have drilled well. They can't drink there's a dug well where they are. This is Canada. There's been plans to build a house right next door here. But finances can't happen right now. But I was thinking, boy, if there was donations came in, if we were able to start building this house, when I got the guy to come and drill the well for that house, I think, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could offer that to my neighbors, that service, and say, would you like a drilled well and electric pump, right? Anyway, their garden, some of the things over there are growing better than my garden because I think it's a soil thing and it's all a learning curve for all of us. I think next year, please God, I'll bring some topsoil over to them. But I want them to be self-sufficient as much as possible. And I'm growing enough, and if things don't mature quickly enough, because I was a little bit late in growing the garden, then somehow I'll stock up for them. And we have to be neighborly, we have to be charitable, we have to be generous. So I think that Christians should prep those who can see. For those who are oblivious, let them be. Like, you guys, you're so worry warts. Like, the trust in God. That's always hard for me. Trust in God. It's like, no, prepping is not trusting in God. Okay. So this is all kind of in response to Hans's question about those who are armed thugs of the state. I agree 100%. Hans, quoting 1 Corinthians, St. Paul, when I was a child, I spake as like a child, I understood as a child. I think it means I spoke, but obviously, I thought as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. Exactly. So we have a responsibility. Those of us can see we have a responsibility. And it doesn't mean we can't enjoy things in a day-to-day day-to-day basis, right? No, I do. Live fully alive. Absolutely. But yeah. They say adult children of alcoholics, so untreated, are either super responsible or super irresponsible. And that can vary even from day to day or week to week. But often this is one of the characteristics of codependency. And so what we want to do is have the proper place for those things. Be responsible for those things that are necessary, that are important, and not to be irresponsible, but to enjoy things. This is a beautiful day today. Hey, speaking of shortages, I think there's a shortage of chemicals because they keep, some of you will get this and some of you might not, but the weather forecast keeps calling for rain, and more often than not, it doesn't rain. It's supposed to start raining tonight, I don't know, 1 a.m. or something like that, and rain all tomorrow, thunderstorms all night. I would let Vicar out, my dog, and I did see some lightning, and I don't know, about 20 minutes ago, there was a light rain outside, and it's early. But yeah, one of the reasons my neighbor's garden is not doing that great, because they have to water it by hand. They've got a rain barrel that collects rain off of their roof, which also is leaking. They got tarps on the roof. I mean, I'm sure they're going to get something a little bit more substantial before winter comes, but they water from hand, and they walk whatever 50 yards to water their garden by hand. Their plants aren't getting enough water. Anyway. Okay. What else was I going to just comment on? We're at 49 minutes. Oh yeah, okay. I guess it's too late to tell people who are tuning in later at what time I actually started, but they can fast forward the video. Okay. Okay, this is an important part. This is important. This is what I explain to people when they point out problems in the church or in our society as a whole. And there are many, I think, who are losing their faith and losing their faith in the Catholic Church. And of course, I'm a theologian. I'm a priest. I'm in this for the long haul, right? But Jerry says he's watering too funny. I'm watering my garden right now, trying to keep water from my phone. Yeah, I was doing that too. Glad you're watching. That's awesome, Jerry. That is so cool. They look at all the problems in the church. Look at, I mean, last week or a few days ago, reports come that the Vatican signed on to the Paris Accord. I think they've already signed on to the Paris Accord a decade ago, or maybe 2 decades ago, or whatever. Some of the things, right? Well, like Martin's told me, like this Martin from Ireland, back at Adams's barbecue back in the fall of 2020, when the police brought the horses in and all that type of thing. He was saying people have to understand every institution has been infiltrated. Infiltration or no infiltration, this is what I try to remind people. An abuse or misuse of something is not an argument against its proper use. An abuse or misuse of something is not an argument against its proper use. You know, it'd be one thing if in the Catechism of the Catholic Church and all the saints and dogmas, official dogmas of the faith, things we must believe, we're directing people to do evil things. But that's not what the church teaches. People who do these evil things are not following the teachings of the Catholic Church, right? Even if 99.999% of people are misusing the Catholic Church, misusing their authority, all sorts of things, that's not a reason for me to leave the church. Because I'm not in the church because the people are so good. And there are some really good people in the Catholic Church. And there's good people that are not in the Catholic Church. I'm in the Catholic Church because, well, first of all, Jesus founded a church. He didn't found a whole bunch of churches. He founded one church. And he promised that he would never leave them. He would never leave his church. And he has not left his church. For those who say that religion is man-made, well, it all depends who you say Jesus is. Because if you believe that Jesus is God who became man, then the Catholic Church was founded directly by God. And the Jewish religion also was founded by God. He chose to reveal himself to a certain tribe of people. But the new and everlasting covenant, so that was a covenant with a certain people, the new and everlasting covenant is open to all who have faith. And that is the covenant that Jesus, the bridegroom, has with his bride, the church. So anyway, an abuse or misuse. I mean, we can think of more mundane things. People misuse vehicles, cars. They speed. Maybe they use it for immoral reasons. This is an abuse of that. But we don't say we got to scrap all cars. Oh, wait a second. We kind of do say that these days for different reasons. You know what I'm saying? Or there's abuse in marriages, right? There are abusive individuals within marriages. Does that mean that we should abolish marriage? No. There are people who overeat. I mean, what are we going to be, like New York City, and like ban sugar drinks or something? The church teaches, the Catholic Church teaches, that the use of alcohol is not a sin. And you know, that's a big thing for me. So I accept the church's teaching on that. Also says the use of tobacco is not a sin, but the abuse of these things, the intentional abuse of these things, that would be sinful. To intentionally intoxicate yourself, but I see things again through addiction. So most people in our society, at least my age group, I'm 59, and whatever decades before and after me, experiment with tobacco and alcohol. Well, a certain percentage of those individuals get addicted to those substances. And God will be the judge, but no, I don't think anyone says, I'm going to start drinking. I'm going to be hopelessly addicted to it, psychologically, emotionally, maybe even physically. I'm going to make life miserable for everyone that I love. I'm going to drink and drive and cause an accident and kill someone. Like, no one does that, I don't think. So, Okay, what is this? I'm looking at this. So it's a good. I'm struggling with today's church. Kat says, I smack Bob in the head with a chair. Bob would be incorrect to say that chairs are not for sitting. Yeah, I think Kat is trying to make that analogy. That would be a misuse of a chair, right? But you don't get rid of chairs because someone, and you know, and we can think of other things. You know, people use certain things, right? If people misuse that, well, that's a misuse of that. There's a proper use for it, for those things, right? But anyway, there was a time Rosemary says that everyone smoked. Yeah, it's wild. I mean, when I was growing up, people smoked in department stores, probably even the grocery stores. um, Kathy says, I just got here, missed a lot. We'll come back and watch later. Yeah, stay. You might as well stay live, Kathy. I think, you know, YouTube you can watch it later. Yep, prep for, Jerry says, prep for all our neighbors as well. Father, I took the Bible in a year on YouTube and found I learned so much. It was Father Mike Smith. I would recommend it to all. Good. 40 roller, 50 push-ups, Kathy, for getting late. One thing about out here at In Viam Pacis, you're never late. There's no such thing as late here. Okay, a couple kind of current event things. James Top court martial. Okay. You know, people have to understand that James Top is not a fool. He knew this was a possibility, and then he reveals, if you go to James Top, T-O-P-P, YouTube channel, he does some videos recently. He's explaining that his legal counsel, he had two options. One was to deal with it kind of internally with his immediate superiors, the fact that he wore a uniform and made a political statement. This is basically what it's about. And the other option was to go the route of court martial. And him and his counsel freely chose to go the route of court martial. And this decision was made months ago. So it's not new news. And when people presented as kind of, oh, shock, oh no, this is terrible injustice. No, what they're doing is they want to be able to bring evidence in a formal way. And he's willing to put his freedom on the line because, you know, you could go to military jail, right? I mean, depending, I don't know. And so this is not a surprise. He's doing it, you know. Look, St. Paul did the same thing, and when he said he wanted to preach the gospel to the emperor if he could. So he said, "No, I'm a Roman citizen. I'm appealing." And he used the system, right? And my friend Randy Hillier is the same thing, and many of the freedom lovers are doing the same thing. They could, you know, pay lawyers, get off on a technicality, blah blah blah, right? And we're seeing the government, and here they call it the Crown, right? The Crown prosecutors. They're dropping cases. They have been since 2020. But it's looking forward to a court date for an opportunity to bring the evidence into the light. So it's a strategy, and yeah, they're putting it on the line. That's why these people are heroes. And that's one of the reasons why James Top is a hero. Boris Johnson says he's resigning. What a difference a few hours can make. Just a few hours prior, you say never. Interesting what it was. And this is a little bit of a message for the bishops. The reason that Boris Johnson, so the apparent reason, the official reason, according to the opposition over in England, right, the parliamentary system there and the critics, is because there's a particular member of parliament, I think a cabinet minister, who, is a predatory. Am I gonna get a strike if I say this? I got a warning already on YouTube from when I went to the protest and videoed all the talks at the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario. And so the warning is that if I get another one or strike or whatever, then it's a strike, and then I can't live stream for a week or something, which wouldn't be the end of the world. But by the way, I've got another YouTube channel. It's called Holy Mass Notification. Holy Mass Notification. I'll type it in right here because the Holy Mass is one word. Notification. Alternate YouTube channel. Oops. Okay, so if you can always check that. I haven't used that channel in a while, but you can always check. You subscribe there or whatever. Check there if you haven't seen a video from me in a while. Anyway, I'd like to avoid that. There's on this channel, of course, I have over 1,000 subscribers. On Holy Mass Notification, I don't know how many subscribers I have. There are certain benefits to having over 1,000 subscribers and so many hours of view, because it means the live stream is open to an unlimited number of people, and if it's less than, there's restrictions on that. So what was I talking about? Boris Johnson, right? And this is a warning to the bishops. So the apparent reason that Boris Johnson is now being forced to step down as the prime minister is because he knew about this minister's proclivities, and now it's come out public. Someone made a public it was a little bit of a whistleblower, we could say, and that's what's coming down. So bishops, if you're still promoting and covering up for certain priests that have known problems, or you know of them that have problems, could be your downfall, and should be your downfall. Actually, should be your downfall. But like I said before, if there's any bishop watching this, just ask yourself this question: by any chance, did one or both of your parents have a drinking problem when you were growing up? Because you're acting like an adult child of an alcoholic without treatment, because you're covering up for people who are doing despicable things or have done despicable things. And I want people to understand, when this kind of dysfunctional way of thinking gets grafted onto religious principles, that becomes an extra layer of denial. So bishops who cover up and promote priests who, they would feel so guilty if they didn't cover up. They think it's charity. They don't understand that it's enabling. They don't, I mean, they're not stupid men. They weigh all these things, but when it comes right down to it, they're operating out of this very sick, dysfunctional codependency, but they cannot see it because they think it's a virtue. That's what I think they think. Tamara Lich, or Leach, however you pronounce her name, Lich, a justice of the peace with no legal education, decided to rule that she breached her bail conditions and keep her in jail. And anyone with half a brain can see this is complete injustice. This is what I know of Tamara Leach. When there was the GoFundMe page, there was a GoFundMe set up for the truckers, I went to give a donation, and it came up that you are about to send money to Tamara Leach, right? So I never heard of her. I've been involved in the freedom movement. Now she's from out west, whatever. I've been involved in the freedom movement. I know the players in Ottawa, at least some of their first names. And someone says the prosecutor is reprehensible. Rosemary says, yeah, the prosecutor and the justice of the peace. It's like, and the police officer who arrested her, didn't even know who John Carpe was. Yeah, there's a lot of stupid things. Go to Rebel News Media to find out more details about that. So I think it's a reliable source. So anyway, what I did was I phoned one of my contacts who I know is an organizer, and had been trying to get the trucker convoy going. This was actually the third attempt, and they ultimately, these ones who were trying to get it going, they didn't even get it going. It really was a grassroots thing. It was the flashpoint or the catalyst for the truckers to wake up with the cross-border mandate. But it wasn't about the cross-border mandate for truckers. It was everything. But that's what it took. Like if you heat up an oil to a certain point, once it gets a certain temperature, the whole thing ignites, right? I don't think there is any real leadership for the truckers convoy or for the freedom movement. I'll tell you who should be the leaders, and that is the bishops. They missed a huge opportunity to right from the get-go, but again, they couldn't see it. They're just like everyone else. They are susceptible to the messaging, and they fell for it. But their rightful place would have been leading all those freedom rallies and telling the government that they can go stuff themselves. This is a huge lie, and we're standing up for property rights, which is the teachings of the Catholic Church, not communism, not socialism, not Great Reset, and would have trusted the real experts, and they could have been leading this. They could have been gaining credibility, but they chose. I don't think they had any choice, because that's the way they see it. Everyone has to kind of follow the way they see it and make the best decisions they do. But in the freedom movement, there really is no leaders, but some rise and are kind of good spokesmen. Anyway, Tamara Leach, I make this phone call, so I get the scoop that no, Tamara is a good person. She's just a good person who decided to set up a GoFundMe. But what happened, which was beyond their wildest dreams, is in no time at all, the GoFundMe was up over $1 million. So immediately they sent out a message saying, thank you to everyone, and they've hired an accountant, and they're going to make sure there's complete transparency to make sure that the funds get dispersed to the truckers, and they set up a system and whatever, and then the rest. The government stepped in, and then they tried to go to something else besides GoFundMe, which was Go Get Me Funds or something like this, or was it something? Anyway, whatever it was, I think it was a Christian organization. But in both cases, the government was successful in blocking all that money. Again, it's theft from the government. But Tamara Leach, she came to the forefront because her name was on the GoFundMe. And that's basically it. Give, send, go. Thank you very much, Rosemary. And that's it. Her name was on that, so now she's called an organizer. She organized a GoFundMe out of the goodness of her heart. That's the way I see Tamara Leach. And this is definitely political persecution. And you know, as far as Pat King goes, he has a certain following, but he's not the leader of it all. And tons of people in the freedom movement do not have a great deal of respect for him. They do and they don't, because he oversteps certain things that that they were trying to build bridges, especially with the Indians, and that's what um, indigenous peoples in Canada like to be called, Indians. And they what's her saying? Can't remember. Sorry about that. Okay, Tamara Leach. Georgia Guidestones. The most interesting thing I find, or hypothesis, is that it was actually struck by lightning. That there was no bomb, no deliberately sabotage of it. I think the deliberate sabotage fits into the narrative of the elitist globalists and those who would agree with what was written on the Georgia Guidestones. And so I think it's, you know, they're always, I think, looking for excuse to clamp down even more on people. And yeah, find a scapegoat, whatever the case may be. So, and if it was lightning, we can consider it an act of God. And I just want to remind you that God is on your side. He loves you. He's on the side of truth. You stick with the truth. You're good. And I will reiterate to, even though some people might not like it, we're not going through a chastisement, because if God wanted to send us a chastisement, he's all powerful, and he would do a lot better than sending a virus that is a 99.95 or 7%, 99.9 something percent recovery rate. Like God would know how to do it. And he's also just, and he knows how to punish those who are responsible. And they're, these evil people, they're not, they better repent, because they're not going to get away with it with Jesus, who is the judge of all judges. Netherlands. Yeah, again, I see this as part of the agenda. They're trying to steal the land and the livelihoods of people of generations and generations. Are there problems in terms of farming industry? Yes, I would say. I mean, I'm not an expert or anywhere in agriculture, but you know, here in Canada, you know, farms get bigger and bigger and bigger. They get more and more, you know, industrialized, and you know, we do have certain systems that are, I think, not fair, are too regulated, in my opinion. But I think this is a great injustice that the Netherlands government is doing, and they're rising up, and they're following the example of the truckers, and hopefully people will wake up. I mean, I was talking to one person who has a Dutch background, but this person watches the mainstream media from Holland, and so basically is saying, well, this is the reality. There's too much, you know, nitrogen, and this is a big problem, because I found out, this is a claim that I heard, that, and I haven't done the research to confirm it, but I have no reason not to believe it, except for my usual skepticism and cynicism. But apparently the Netherlands is the #2 export in the world of agricultural goods. That's amazing, you know, for a small country. So they, you know, and you know, it's like there's lots of food, there's there's lots of food for the whole population, and for it to be growing quite a bit more. It's not, we do not have an overpopulation problem, and there's no real food shortage. It's all created crisis by people in powers that be. In the speaking of farmers, at one of the all candidates meetings that I did a live stream for the Ontario election, a farmer spoke up, and he said that last year the price of fertilizer was $500 a ton. And I'm going off memory, but I believe it's $500 a ton, which was because fertilizer is important for for productivity, and that keeps food prices down, right? Because you have more supply. Well, he said $500, if my memory serves correctly, it costs for fertilizer that could cover 10 acres. He said now, which was a couple months ago, it costs them $1,600, from $500 to $1,600. $500 to $1,600. Then you see the ridiculous increase in price of diesel fuel, and the farming infrastructure is more than I know, and more than most people know. And it was explained to me by a trucker about, for example, how cattle are they're because it takes so many years for the beef cattle to mature, to get to market, that costs so much food and everything like that, that they, after a certain point, they get sent off, and then they get fed grains. Well, it's sent off to a specific place, or places that are around the world, around North America, and it's just kind of the way the system works. And this is, keeps so the farmers get a profit, but also that the food is relatively affordable. But most of the beef that I find affordable is ground beef, because steaks are pretty expensive. Although someone came up and helped me out for a week, and they brought some steaks, which was great. Cooked them over the campfire. Yeah, just want to encourage people who are adults, who can see what's what, who are not oblivious to the realities of what's going on, to don't submit. Don't submit. Don't submit. Millions of people have learned how to live under communism. We'll find a way to. And if we end up becoming martyrs in that sense, then our reward will be great in heaven. So, so draw on the strength of the witnesses who have gone before us, and be strong, and be strong. And a critical mass, we can frustrate their plans. Social engineers have huge blind spots. And my first encounter with social engineers, well, I shouldn't say my first, if I think of it a bit more, but one that was fairly close to home was when my mom was in her late 60s, and she, through social housing, social services, was able to rent an apartment building, which in the city of Ottawa was dedicated to seniors. But the social engineer, a little few years after she moved there, the social engineers decided that it shouldn't be a dedicated seniors building, that this is kind of like not a very good thing. And they had this idea that if younger people could go into the buildings, because people it's subsidized housing, right? The younger people, well, they need the guidance. They recognize maybe they didn't have the guidance, but with the older people that are there, they'll be able to mentor the younger people, and the younger people would help the older people with carrying groceries and all the blah blah blah. No, no, the building became infested with drug addicts and drug dealers and prostitutes. And on a weekly basis, the fire alarm was going on off, maybe a daily basis. It became a terrible. I think because of that, I think I know what crack cocaine smells like. Because I'd go into the building and smell this awful stuff. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And so anyway, a few years after that, I don't know how many years it was. May have been 10 years, because my mom lived into her 90s, and they decided, yeah, okay, this is probably, I guess that didn't work. So they offered, with enough complaints and everything, they decided to dedicate another building, another high rise, to seniors only. But it was downtown, and my mom didn't want to move, so she stayed there with all the drug addicts and prostitutes and stuff, and mentally ill people. And I'm not. That's just the reality. I'm not putting down those people. I'm just saying that's the reality, and that was a social engineering project that went terribly wrong. Okay, I'm gonna look at your. I think that's basically all I have for now. Please remember, an abuse of something is not an argument against its proper use, and don't be scandalized. Don't let the misdeeds of others motivate you to leave something which is very, very good. In essence, don't throw the baby out the bathwater is another way of saying it. Okay. Teresa says she has a small child. I believe she's talking about Tamara Leach. Kat says, strange to me that it was bombed. So that's the Georgia Guidestones. They don't have video footage of the people walking up to the statue. Yeah, there's some really great. Apparently, there's all sorts of cameras on that all the time. And what do they have? Some kind of a nondescript gray. Maybe it's because at night everything is gray. Sedan, and kind of like someone walking up to it. Well, that could be anyone. Doesn't mean anything. The Lord is coming to judge the living and the dead, Carol says. Agreed, of course. He truly is come, Lord Jesus. But, in his time. Rosemary says, can the spider in front of the cathedral in Ottawa be removed? Perhaps some act of God. Yes, please, God. That's a great prayer. Maybe we could just pray for that right now. I wonder. Are the powers that be so superstitious that they would think that if I prayed for that I would be somehow responsible for that? So if people don't know, there's the National Art Gallery is right across the street from Notre Dame Cathedral in Ottawa, my home diocese. And a number of years ago, because they're always spending money, like taxpayer money, on artwork that they think is art and significant. And for some reason, they put this huge, I think, ugly spider. And sorry, Laura, I don't mean to criticize your creation. All your creation is beautiful, but it's a terrible thing. It's a big, huge monstrosity. It's totally out of place. It's who chose that? And underneath there's a sack, like with all her baby spiders about to. And in a hot summer day in the cathedral, when I've been down there for mass, and you're processing out, and if the ushers open the doors, right, so you can see outside, because it's not air conditioned in there or anything. Yeah, all you see is this spider. Like you're walking directly to this giant spider. It's ugly. You can search on the internet, National Gallery of Canada spider, and you can see. Anyway, anything is possible for God, Rosemary. So, yeah. When are we going to return to some good taste in our society? R&R Johnny, whatever Ohio did to mitigate pollution in Lake Erie should be the model. Yeah, the Great Lakes have really, my understanding, they've really been cleaned up. over the years. Like when I was young, I don't think they were very good. But people are fishing out of there, eating the fish now. Carol says, make sure you have your spiritual house in order first. That's right. First things first. First things first. I do want to just remind everyone that God is on your side and he loves you. And one of the challenges that we have who have been, practicing our religion is we've heard a lot of talks, a lot of motivational speakers and whatnot. And not that I'm not trying to dismiss them all, throw the baby out the bathwater or anything, but we have a lot of words, we have a lot of understanding of our worldview and about who God is and how, and I could say it's all good in kind of in a blanket way, all or most of it is good. But there's a difference between, this is going to sound very trite, and I hope it doesn't sound condescending, but there's a difference between, having our head knowledge and understanding, and even with practicing our faith, that is, going to mass, making use of the sacraments, doing our best to love one another, to love our neighbors, to love our enemies. There's a difference between that and this sounds so trite, but having that relationship with God. The fact is that we all have a relationship with God, but we can all go deeper. We can all, if, like the quote from Corinthians earlier, if I realize, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, understood as a child, thought as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. I'm always learning things. When people come to me and they want help with their codependency or with their addictions, one of the biggest challenges, because with practicing Catholics who've been practicing their faith for a long time, is we think that of the 12 steps that we're already at step 6. We don't understand the first step, that we're powerless over whatever, that our lives become unmanageable. Usually we're in denial that our lives become manageable. Sometimes a crisis brings us to that, so we can kind of see it, but still we've already done all the others, we think. The second step came to believe that power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So we think, oh yeah, I believe in God. As a matter of fact, these people at the 12 step groups, they don't even know who God is. They don't even know who Jesus is. So we kind of think we're way ahead of them. Third step, made a decision to turn our will and our life over the care of God as we understood him. We say, oh, there's that understood him again. Like they don't even know who God is. I know who God is because I listened to Scott Hahn or something. I mean, I'm not trying to pick on Scott's a great man. You understand what I'm saying. I went to Catholic school, so I know who God is. I don't have to use that as we understood him thing. Well, what is this? You make up your own thing? This is the attitude that we practicing Catholics often have towards the 12 steps when we're first kind of introduced to them. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Oh, I examine my conscience all the time. Admitted to God, to ourselves, to another human being, the exact nature of wrongs. Oh yeah, I examine myself and I go to confession. And so we're like, I already do like the first 5 steps. The 6th step, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Oh, I think I am, like I've surrendered. I do my morning offering. I've consecrated myself to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Humbly ask to remove our shortcomings. Okay, well, okay. Made a list of all persons we had harmed, became willing to make amends to them all. Step 8, made direct amends to such persons except when to do so which injure them or others. Step 9, have I done that? Oh, maybe they'll examine that and say that's a kind of a concrete thing they haven't done. Step 10, continue to take personal inventory when we're wrong, promptly admitted it. Well, that's why I want bishops and priests and politicians to get into the 12 steps so they can start admitting that they're wrong. It's no big deal, guys. Like, seriously. But step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him. So there's that the ambiguous thing we might think. Praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. We're like, well, okay, fine, but there's also intercessory prayer. There's also this type of prayer, da 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 da, and so yeah, I think I already worked the 12 steps. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, are tied together this message to others and to practice these principles in all our prayers, in all our affairs. Yeah, that's why I go around telling everyone they should, go back to church and what we think is evangelizing. So the biggest thing is the first two steps for the people that come to me, and not everyone. And I'm not. If you're coming to me, please don't take offense to this. This is just kind of a blanket thing, but it's, can we just stop for a second and have some humility, some extra humility, and see that maybe my relationship with God is stuck in an infantile place? Or what do you mean? I've got a degree in theology. I teach catechism at the parish. I'm part of the RCIA program. What do you mean I have an infantile understanding of God? Well, I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong word. Can we look at it? Can we get from God is always watching us because because He hates sin? Fair enough. But can we get past to God is always watching us because He's madly in love with us? Right? I mean, that's a huge difference. Right? While we're removing the spider, can we remove Trudeau? Thank you, Father Anthony. God bless everyone. Thank you, Rosemary. BA, peace be with you, Father. Thank you for your stream. Much good to be done in these times. Rosemary says, pray the rosary every day. Yeah, and praying the rosary is a good thing. But I do not agree with Dr. Taylor Marshall, who keeps saying, if you don't pray the rosary every day, you're not on the team. No. And if you miss the rosary, like, the rosary was made to replace the breviary for the I mean, one way of understanding the development of the rosary was to replace the 150 psalms, right? So you got three sets of mysteries, 5 mysteries each, 10 decades, so 50 Hail Marys. Well, we pray a few extra. So once you pray all 3 mysteries over a period of 3 days, or all at once, or whatever, well, there's 150 rosaries, Hail Marys, representing the 150 psalms that are prayed in the monastery down the street, who you want to go, but you're not a monk, you're not a nun, you're in the world. So how can we do that? Similarly with the Angelus and other devotions. So the rosary is a very good thing, and I encourage people to pray it. And when you pray the rosary, you know you've prayed. And there's great fruits from meditating on the mysteries of the rosary. And you can use it as intercessory prayer and all sorts of things. So yes, a very, very good thing. But I'm not personally into imposing anything that adds burden to people. Please, I'm not a Protestant, I'm a Catholic, right? There's one of the things I learned, being out here, and I'm better appreciation for tradesmen. They get up early, they show up early, they work really hard and fast, they're exhausted by mid-afternoon. And me as a parish priest would tell people, I don't think I would say you should, but I would say it's a really good thing if you get to daily mass. And it is a really good thing to get to daily mass. But if someone is a father and a tradesman and he's working hard, he's exhausted, but his kids are off school at 3:30 or 4 o'clock or whatever, and he's got, I'm not interested in burdening people. That's why the church, the actual church teaching about religious practice is actually quite minimal. You know, go to mass on Sunday, assisted mass. I go and pray at mass, assist, with your prayers on Sundays and holy days of obligation. I think it's a great thing to go to mass every day, but and I encouraged it, and I still encourage it, but please don't feel guilty if you don't go to mass every day. The same thing with the rosary. Now, if you're driving to work and you're alone or even with others, praying the rosary is a great thing. Like that's a great way to pray the rosary. But like even me here at this retreat center, right? I'm a priest and I have solemn promises, to pray the breviary and for prayer life, right? Well, it's you can't do that. A tradesman can't do that. Maybe if he's young enough he can. But anyway, I remember there's Knights of Columbus who were sending around this members who were sending around this email, like, what is a practical Catholic? It means practicing Catholic, because in the language of the Knights of Columbus, to be a member of the Knights of Columbus, you have to be a practical Catholic, which doesn't mean you're practically a Catholic. It means you practice the Catholic faith. So there's the email going around, and I remember like there's people talking about, well, a real practical Catholic, a real practicing Catholic goes to mass more than just on Sundays, because he realizes that's the real presence of Jesus and the infinite value of the mass. So he's going to go there, and he's going to go to confession at least once a month. And I am all for monthly confessions. I go a lot more than once a month, but I'm a wretched sinner. Like, not, some of you aren't wretched sinners like me, but I mean, like, it's a great thing, and there's tremendous graces, right? But what does the church say? The church says that you have an obligation to receive Holy Communion once a year. So go to mass every Sunday, but you don't have to receive Holy Communion every time you go to mass. But it's a good thing, and there's lots of graces there, as long as you're in a state of grace, right? So the church says receive Holy Communion minimally once a year, and connected to that, to confess any mortal sins, that is serious sins, once a year, presumably before you receive Holy Communion, right? It's not like, it's great if you go to confession monthly, you go to mass every day, you pray the rosary once a day or 3 times a day. These are all really, really good things. But please understand that the church presents what is necessary for salvation. So I agree with you, Rosemary. Pray the rosary every day, but please don't feel guilty if you don't. And you are on the team, and your name is written in the book of life if you're baptized and you don't pray the rosary. Whatever. I hope I made myself clear. Maybe someone's going to take a snippet of that. Look, Father Hannon says you don't have to pray the rosary, so he's not a real Catholic. He's not a real priest or something. Oh. Yep. Everyone is where they're at. Everyone is where they're at. Read the Bible every day. There's a plenary indulgence for reading scripture for at least 30 minutes. So, okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments or anything like that? So thank you. 27 people still watching, an hour 40 in. I'm having a late mass here tomorrow, so, and it's going to be raining apparently, unless there's a shortage of chemicals, because they need the chemicals somewhere else to get the rain going there. Okay. Well, look, really appreciate everyone in the live chat, and I hope that whatever I've said tonight will be of help to some of you. Please pray for me, and we'll pray for one another. I remember you in my prayers, You know, everyone who ever watches any video, you know, you're in my prayers. And supporters of In Viam Pacis, eyes on heaven, feet on the ground. There are bills to pay. I'm remiss in thanking people, but I thank everyone who's given. It's not like tons of people give, by the way. There's probably, if I looked at it, there's probably about 20 people on a monthly basis that give, and most of them are small donations. But I'm very grateful for them, and I thank God. I'm very grateful for the life that I live. Jerry says, in many parts of Canada, we were blessed to have a priest in a few times of the year. That's true. Kat says, I didn't know it was a plenary. That's cool. You know, there's a fellow in the seminary. He only went to the seminary for 1 year. Really good guy, really likable guy. And he came from a Protestant background, and from that background, he prays, he reads the Bible like minimum 45 minutes a day. And I remember him telling me that his spiritual director told him he was praying the Bible too much. Rosemary says, we pray for you nightly at Divine Intervention Ontario, Father Anthony. Okay, is that with the group with the Spartacus? Is that what that is with, Rosemary? I need to get in touch with him. His name is slipping my mind right now. French name. He's on the Gatineau side. Teresa, I had daily devotion of rosary. Then after I healed from flu, I stopped and felt drawn to reading Holy Scripture. Thank you for speaking on this. No, it's true, Teresa. And you know, the other thing, like spiritual direction, right? Sorry for kicking the camera. Yes, glorious and free. Sylvain Henry, exactly. He sent me an email actually asking, since you're in touch with him, he sent me an email sometime through the contact page when the contact page was still working, asking if a whole group could come up to my place for retreat. And this is a silent retreat center, individual self-directed retreats. I've got one septic system here. I can't have a whole group of people, but if people want to come and camp or something like that, that is possible. That is possible, as long as people don't expect to take a shower every day, because like I don't want to do bowel movements in my septic system all the time, because I don't want to overwhelm the system. That's why we have to build. We have to get some more septic systems up here. But this is not a conference center; it's a retreat center. So that's the point. But I'm happy, if any of you want to come and visit, reach out to me. Just call and make sure. Someone wanted to visit today, actually. Reach out to me. Contacted me a couple days ago. They wanted to come visit today. I said no. I have a silent retreat in Tier, so I don't want to have visitors right now. But later this week, for sure. I believe they wanted to help me. Yeah, well, Rosemary, I want to help everyone too. So that's cool. And it's my bad. It's my bad for not getting back to Sylvain. And so many others. So many others. Sometimes I think the reason I'm here is because I'm not that industrious, we could say. I'm not that good at administrative things, and yeah, I think I would have been burned out in the parish. I mean, I served in parishes for like 13 years, so, and it was positive in lots of ways and negative in a few ways. Oh yeah, so spiritual direction, right? Sometimes people will come to spiritual direction, or even if it's not formal spiritual direction, it's just come to a priest, come to confession maybe, and they'll say that their spiritual life is dry. They, like Mother Teresa of Calcutta, right? When in her journals they found out that for a few decades she was running without consolations from God, whereas previously she felt so close to God, it was like God was speaking to her, like her call within a call, right, to found the Missionaries of Charity. And it was, but so some people say, oh, well, was Mother Teresa like faking it or something? No, no, that people don't understand. She had tremendous faith because she had faith without consolations. It's akin to Jesus saying to Saint Philip, no, to Saint Thomas. Sorry, you believe because you see. Blessed are those who do not see yet believe. Blessed are those who have no consolations yet they believe. That's like real faith. But sometimes someone will come to me or to priest, to spiritual director, and say, my spiritual life is really dry. Where is God? I pray and nothing gets out of it, whatever. And I used to read the scripture and it was so I don't now I read the scripture and it's not whatever. And people sometimes will come and say, I think I'm going through the dark night of the soul. And okay, my understanding is dark night of the soul is a gift. So that's kind of like Mother Teresa of Calcutta went through the last few decades of her life. Um, it's a it's a gift. It's when other things have been exhausted. So if a Catholic comes to me and says, "I think I'm going through the dark night of the soul," and I'm like, "Okay, um, tell me about your spiritual life. What has it been like? Tell me about your journey with God, stuff like this." And then I say, "Well, do you pray the Rosary?" And they'll say, "No, I've never prayed the Rosary." Well, you're not in the dark night of the soul because you haven't even scratched the surface of the sacramentals or the devotional life. So try praying the Rosary, and then they pray the Rosary. It's like, wow, this is really, really good, and they feel so much closer to God. And it's like, see, you weren't in the dark night of the soul, and pray the Rosary because that's giving you life. And just like Teresa said, she had a daily devotional rosary. Then after healed from the flu, I stopped and felt drawn to reading Holy Scripture. And I'm assuming, Teresa, this is giving you life. I don't think God is displeased with you if you don't pray the rosary, but you pray but you pray with the scriptures. I do think he's displeased with you if you say the rosary is bad, or if Holy Scripture is bad, or Mass is bad, or going to confession is bad. But I don't think that's good. But don't call something that's good bad. So some people fall into that. But the Rosary is a very good devotion, and I encourage people to pray it. But don't beat yourself up if you don't pray it. So your conversation with God, you have responsibility to develop your personal prayer life, right? That is your conversation with God, and how you do that. And for different people, depending on the state of life, make a morning offering, and have that inner conversation with God throughout the day. I mean, not that I know that anyone does this, but imagine you spend 15 minutes and pray the Rosary, and then the rest of the day you forget about God. Or you go to daily Mass, and for that half hour, you're praying to God, and then the rest of the day you forget Him. Okay. Wow. Guess what? starting to rain. So maybe I don't have to water the garden tomorrow. And please God, my neighbors across the street, they're going to, their tomatoes are going to rise up, and their potatoes and their onions and everything else. Anyway, I think it was okay live stream. It is almost 2 hours, a minute 52 minutes. I probably should get back to making shorter videos. The subscriptions to this YouTube channel has been dropping the last couple months, like 2 or 3 a day, and my skeptical part of me, my cynical part of me says YouTube is doing this, but I think there's a good chance that people are seeing that my videos are very, very long, and they didn't sign up for that, so they're like, whatever. So okay. I guess we'll finish. The Lord be with you. May Almighty God bless each and every one of you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Go in peace, live in the truth, live free.